It's not that deep. You're reading too much into it. You're just being pretentious. The oh-so-common critique of critiques, even of analysis with a positive leaning, that makes me want to tear out my hair and fly into a furious typing frenzy, trying in vain to make them see the error of their ways. You see this so often, even from people who posture as critics themselves, and I'll admit it's a clever tactic. They can posture as above it all. They're the ones who really understood it, but it doesn't actually require them to respond or engage with anything you say. Sincerely, it is among the most frustrating responses you can see to analysis, above many others. Turn your brain off implies willfully looking past technical failings, but it's not that deep asks you to completely reject the core of why we even engage with art, or anything really. That we can find meaning, that we can turn a piece of media into a starting point for a deeper discussion, that's what I'm here for. And it's not like the people I see making this argument entirely reject the value of media as a presentation of values and ideologies. However, if you dare to look anywhere beyond the direct text, and heck, sometimes even if it is in the direct text, but they don't perceive it as serious enough, whatever the qualification for that is, suddenly your argument is moot and meaningless. And don't you dare try to critique it within the cultural context of the work, or look at implicit meanings, or the work as a part of a broader movement. Everything exists in a bubble, it seems. I present all this knowing full well and good that I'm not going to actually change anyone's minds. If anything, to them, making an analytical response to a total rejection of the core behind analysis itself would only prove their point. I'm just looking too deep into it once again. To change their minds, if it is possible by any process other than time and maturity, would require a different approach. But I do find considering the core behind what provokes these types of statements rather interesting. It is a natural fact of life that we all make assumptions and operate based on surface-level impressions. In fact, I think it's fair to say that this is the basis for the majority of our interactions with the world around us. People don't actually fit into the simple terms of good and bad. Morality is a gradient based on our own standards, and people's actions are informed by much more than malicious intent. However, to try to recognize and empathize with the emotional subtleties of everyone around us would be overwhelming and impossible to grapple with. We necessarily must make assumptions about the world around us to operate within it. But with that said, I think it is far too easy to lean into the excessive in that department. Certainly we don't have the emotional energy to be empaths 24/7, but the lack thereof is the root of most conflict and ignorant actions, so I believe it's worth extending a bit more effort than the bare minimum. I think many people can appreciate deeper media, something that aims to explicitly comment on the society we live in. However, equally so, people desire something simple. Maybe you can't turn your brain off, but it's the same sensation. A piece of media that requires little to no engagement, that is simple and easy to compartmentalize, and thus is satisfying and relaxing. This applies to real-world events. And I say this with reference not just to things that are pleasing. People just as much enjoy ribbing on anything they can put in the box of bad things, something that has no greater meaning to it. So, when some old self-important YouTuber comes along like this core dude over here, like who even is this dude? His name doesn't even show up in the search results because it's so short and also Korean subtitles exist. Like I was saying, when this individual comes along and tells them, there's something more here, I think it may to some extent, conscious or no, be an attack on their very way of life. To inform them that there may be something more in this one instance is to say that perhaps there are other things that they may have dismissed wrongly, that in reality bear something more. So, in order to avoid rethinking their entire way of life, the only reasonable response is to reject it offhandedly. Oh, it's not that deep. They're seeing something that isn't there. I am the one who is actually seeing the world correctly. In truth, it almost always is that deep, or at least possesses that level of depth, whether or not the analyst themselves is correct in their view. So many colliding variables mean that there are so many angles, approaches, and insights to find. Whether or not they are foregrounded in the work itself is of no relevance. Another common dismissal I find is that of characterizing the person presenting this insight as pretentious. Essentially the same as saying it's not that deep, but here a more direct attack on the character of the analyst. It does, I think, bear a slightly different thought process behind it. Pretentious, beyond its pure definition, is in use generally associated with the claimed individual unrightfully positioning themselves as above the viewer. It is not just presenting something, theme, idea, or whatever, as existing in the work when it does not. It is to present oneself as being the authority on understanding this work and in reality not being such. To put on airs of a mock intelligence. Those throwing pretentious around seem to believe that if someone else found something in the work that they did not, then the person must be telling them they're stupid for not getting it. I value analysis as a point of using the themes within a work as a means to consider and discuss a variety of concepts. It's not about being the one to get it, as satisfying as it is to find something you think is unique to you in a piece of art. I make analysis because I want others in on the conversation. If I wanted to be truly pretentious, I could just make fun of others for not getting it and never actually do anything myself. That's really why these arguments get at me so much, because I want them in on the conversation. I want them to participate. I think everyone, both sides, are missing out the less people who are in on it. So when I present a heartfelt expression, a genuine request to consider a subject, to look beyond the surface, and am met with, "It's not that complicated," well, it just kind of hurts. So, how to convince them? That's the question I found myself musing on. I want to believe that everyone will come around eventually, as much as I know that isn't the case. To be frank, YouTube comments and Twitter replies are pretty much useless. The amount of them that has actually resulted in a productive conclusion is probably less than 1%. I won't say it never works, but it's definitely to the degree of not being a worthwhile endeavor the vast majority of the time. All you get in the end is two people equally angry and equally sure of their being right. Real conversations, amicable ones, seem like the ideal route. So, I guess, call out your friend when he's dismissing analysis unfairly? Not a stirring call to action, I know, but if we want to change minds, it's best done on grounds they perceive as equal. An offhanded, "Hey bro, maybe you're wrong," from a friend, not even as the center point of discussion, will make me question my position infinitely more than any inhuman and distant anime profile pic will. Perhaps this is a tepid conclusion, but what could be more fitting for a commentary on the exhausting dialogue that we're inundated with endlessly? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and like what I do, consider supporting me on Patreon. Special thank you to my patrons Talon, Frogus, and Roggle. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and also comment below your thoughts on this subject. I know it's one that people have a lot of takes on. You can also check out my second channel where I post vlogs and similar musings to this in an unstructured format, and also follow me on Twitter at Core Reviews for all sorts of just random dumbness. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.